In the gleaming halls of the Grand Scientific Academy of Zixthar Prime, Chief Researcher Valixis adjusted her crystalline sensory appendages with barely contained amusement. The holoscreen before her displayed yet another primitive human attempt at space exploration, a clunky vessel that looked more like a child's toy than a proper spacecraft. Record observation log, date stamp 47,299.3. She chirped, her translucent skin shifting through shades of azure and violet. Continued monitoring of species 2793H, designation humans, confirms initial assessment of technological inferiority. Their latest orbital vessel maintains an embarrassingly inefficient propulsion system, and their communication methods remain limited to primitive electromagnetic waves. Around her, fellow researchers tittered, their crystalline appendages tinkling like wind chimes in amusement. The Zixtharians had been studying Earth for nearly a decade, ever since their long-range sensors had detected unusual energy signatures from the Sol system. What they found both fascinated and amused them. A species that had barely mastered basic space travel, still relied on chemical rockets, and hadn't even unified their planetary government. To think they still fight among themselves over arbitrary geographical boundaries, commented Junra, Valixis's assistant, her skin rippling with patterns of condescending mirth. Did you know they still use physical currency in many regions? Actual physical objects for trade. Valix's own skin flickered with patterns of superiority. The Zixtharians had evolved beyond such primitive concepts millennia ago. Their civilization spanned dozens of star systems, their technology so advanced it bordered on the miraculous. They had mastered quantum engineering, developed faster than light travel, and achieved perfect societal harmony through their hive mind-like collective consciousness. Begin new research initiative, Valixis announced, her voice resonating through the chamber's crystal walls. Project designation, Human Observation Study 47. Objective, comprehensive analysis of human limitations and psychological responses to superior beings. The assembly hall hummed with excitement. It wasn't often that the Academy approved direct observation studies of primitive species. Usually, they maintained their distance, watching from afar through their network of cloaked satellites and quantum sensors. But humans had shown just enough potential to warrant closer examination, if only to document how an emerging species coped with the revelation of their cosmic insignificance. We will select a small team for surface observation, Valixis continued, her skin now pulsing with serious undertones of deep indigo. Remember the protocols. No direct interaction, maintain cloaking fields at all times, and absolutely no sharing of advanced technology. We wouldn't want to overwhelm their simple minds. The research team deployed to Earth within the equivalent of a human week. Their vessel, no larger than a terrestrial automobile but containing technology centuries beyond human understanding, settled into a geosynchronous orbit above what humans called North America. The chosen observation team consisted of 3 of the Academy's most promising researchers, Valixis herself, Junra, and the young prodigy Kexley. They established their hidden observation post in a remote mountain range, their advanced cloaking technology making them completely invisible to human detection methods. From here, they could monitor human activities, collect biological samples, and occasionally venture into human settlements for closer observation. These creatures are even more primitive up close, Kexley noted, watching the human city through their quantum imaging system. Look at how they cluster in these inefficient vertical structures, burning fossil fuels for energy. It's almost endearing, like watching infant Zixtharians attempt their first crystal formation. But as the days turned into weeks, something began to trouble Valixis. There were anomalies in their observations, small things that didn't quite fit their models of primitive species development. Humans showed an unusual adaptability, a strange knack for innovation that seemed to defy their technological limitations. Note this curious behavior, she said one day, highlighting a human construction site. They've encountered an obstacle in their building process, but instead of following standard problem-solving protocols, they've improvised. They're using their tools in ways they weren't designed for, creating new solutions on the spot. Junra dismissed it as random chance, but Valixis wasn't so sure. She began to notice other oddities. Humans' remarkable ability to function without a collective consciousness, their capacity to form complex social bonds despite their individualistic nature, and their surprising resistance to environmental extremes. As the first month of their observation drew to a close, Valixis made a decision that would unknowingly set in motion a chain of events that would shake the very foundations of Zixtherian society. She filed a request with the Academy to extend their mission and expand its scope. "There's something about these humans," she recorded in her private log that night, her skin swirling with confused patterns of green and gold. "Something we're missing. They're primitive, yes, but there's an unpredictability to them that defies our standard classification systems. Perhaps we need to revise our approach." Little did Valixis know that her own species' greatest assumption, their unshakable belief in their superiority, was about to be challenged in ways she could never have predicted. The humans were about to prove that sometimes the most primitive solutions could overcome the most advanced problems, and that there was more than one path to advancement in the cosmic order. Captain Sarah Chen stood at attention in the underground bunker of Project Starbridge, her weathered face illuminated by the soft glow of monitoring screens. At 42, she'd spent half her life in special operations, but nothing in her extensive career had prepared her for this briefing. 17 hours ago, our quantum detection array picked up an anomaly in the Rocky Mountains, General Martinez explained, his holographic image flickering slightly. "We've known about our visitors for months, Captain. They think they're invisible, but thanks to Dr. Wang's breakthrough in quantum field detection, we can see their footprints, so to speak." Sarah absorbed this information with the steady calm that had become her trademark. The screens showed ghostly outlines of what appeared to be an advanced observation post, perfectly hidden from conventional detection methods. "And you want me to make contact?" "Not exactly," Martins replied, a hint of mischief in his voice. "We want you to let them make contact with you. Our friends up there think they're studying us. We're going to let them, but we're going to control what they learn." Meanwhile, in their mountain observatory, Valixis was growing increasingly frustrated. Her skin had taken on an agitated orange hue as she reviewed the latest data streams. "These readings can't be correct," she muttered, her crystalline appendages twitching. "Junra, verify the quantum signature analysis of subject 47A. The subject in question was a human female they'd been monitoring for the past week, a soldier who displayed physical capabilities that seemed to exceed their established baseline for human performance. They'd watched her navigate treacherous mountain terrain with inexplicable ease, maintain focus during extended periods of minimal sleep, and demonstrate problem-solving skills that bordered on prescient. "Analysis confirmed," Chief Researcher Junra responded, her own skin shifting to a puzzled yellow. "Subject 47A consistently operates beyond our projected human limitations. Perhaps our baseline data was flawed." Kexley, who had been unusually quiet lately, suddenly chimed in. "Or perhaps our assumptions were flawed. Look at this behavioral pattern analysis. The subject isn't just surviving in these conditions, she's adapting to them. In real time." Down in the valley below their hidden post, Sarah Chen continued her carefully choreographed performance. She knew they were watching. The quantum detector disguised as her standard issue wash confirmed it. Every move she made was part of an elaborate dance, designed to pique their curiosity while revealing nothing of humanity's true capabilities. The breakthrough came 3 weeks into the operation. Valixis, driven by scientific curiosity and growing frustration, made an unprecedented decision. "We need to bring one in for closer study," she announced, her skin now a deep purple of determination. Subject 47A. Her anomalous readings require direct observation. "But the protocols," Junra began to protest. "Will be maintained," Valixis interrupted. "We'll use the quantum stasis field. The subject won't even know they've been temporarily displaced. We'll simply borrow them for a few hours of study." That night, as Sarah made camp in a remote valley, she felt the familiar tingle of her quantum detector. They were coming. She suppressed a smile as she prepared for bed, knowing that the real experiment was about to begin. Not theirs, but humanity's. The abduction was flawless, or so the Zixtherians thought. One moment Sarah was sleeping in her tent. The next she was materialized in their observation post's examination chamber, surrounded by sophisticated analysis equipment. Valixis approached the seemingly unconscious human, her skin glowing with anticipation. "Begin comprehensive biological scan," she instructed, her crystalline appendages extending toward their subject. "Fold spectrum analysis, cellular to quantum level." What happened next would be debated in the halls of the Grand Scientific Academy for years to come. Sarah Chen opened her eyes, looked directly at Valixis, and said in perfect Zixtherian, "Interesting technology you have here. Mind if I take a closer look?" The shock caused Valixis's skin to flash white, a reaction not seen in their species since their primitive days. Junra's crystalline appendages actually shattered, a sign of extreme distress. Kexley, showing more composure than his seniors, simply said, "Well, this is unexpected." Sarah sat up on the examination platform, her movements calm and deliberate. "You've been studying us for quite a while now," she continued in their language. "We thought it was time to have a proper conversation." "Impossible," Valixis managed to stammer, her skin cycling through colors rapidly. "Your species doesn't have the technology to detect us, let alone learn our language. Our cloaking fields are impressive," Sarah interrupted, "but not infallible. Just like your assumptions about human capabilities." The revelation hit Valixis like a quantum surge. Every certainty, every smug assumption about human primitiveness began to crumble. The humans hadn't just detected them. They'd been conducting their own study, carefully feeding the Zixtherians exactly what they wanted to see while hiding their true capabilities. "How long?" Valixis asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Long enough to understand that your species, for all its technological advancement, still has a lot to learn about the nature of intelligence and progress." Sarah stood, her presence somehow filling the room despite the Zixtherians' naturally larger size. "Your civilization achieved unity through a collective consciousness. Ours found strength in diversity. You evolved beyond physical currency. We learned to thrive in chaos and adaptation." The implications were staggering. The Zixtherians had been so focused on their own path of advancement that they'd failed to recognize other forms of progress. Humans hadn't just survived despite their individualistic nature. They had thrived because of it. The news of humanity's deception spread through the Zixtherian collective consciousness like a quantum shockwave. In the crystalline spires of the Grand Scientific Academy, the Council of High Researchers convened an emergency session, their combined forms creating a kaleidoscope of agitated colors across the chamber walls. "This is unprecedented," declared High Researcher MOCKED, his crystalline form pulsing with deep crimson waves of concern. "Not only have the humans been aware of our presence, but they've been actively manipulating our research parameters. Our entire understanding of their species must be questioned." Valixis stood before the council, her usual confident posture slightly diminished. The human, Sarah Chen, had been returned to Earth, not that they'd had much choice in the matter. The revelation that humans had developed quantum field detection technology had thrown their entire surveillance operation into chaos. "There's more," Valixis admitted, her skin shifting to the deep blue of scientific fascination despite her discomfort. "Analysis of our interaction with Subject 47A. Captain Chen suggests that humans possess a form of adaptability we've never encountered before. They don't just learn from their experiences, they anticipate, innovate, and evolve their strategies in real time." Meanwhile, in a secure conference room beneath the Pentagon, Sarah Chen was delivering her own report to a joint panel of military and scientific leaders. The holographic displays showed detailed schematics of Zixtherian technology, captured by the quantum sensors hidden in her neural implants during her brief abduction. Their technological advancement is impressive, Sarah acknowledged, but it's made them rigid. The Zixtherians have become so dependent on their collective consciousness that they've lost the ability to think individually. Every decision must cascade through their entire social hierarchy. Dr. Elena Wong, the quantum physicist responsible for developing Earth's detection technology, leaned forward. But their technological capabilities still far exceed ours in many areas. The question is, what do they plan to do now that their cover is blown? The answer came sooner than anyone expected. 3 days after Sarah's encounter, Zixtherian ships began decloaking in orbit around Earth. Not the small observation vessels they'd been using, but massive research ships, each one larger than the largest human space station. The Zixtherian Council had made a decision. If they couldn't study humans covertly, they would do so openly. What they hadn't anticipated was humanity's response. Within hours of the ship's appearance, every major military installation on Earth activated previously hidden quantum shield generators. Technology reverse-engineered from fragments of Zixtherian data collected over months of careful observation. The message was clear. Humanity wasn't as defenseless as they'd assumed. Impossible, Kexley whispered, watching the shields shimmer into existence from their mountain observation post. They've weaponized our own technology against us. For the first time, his skin showed traces of respect mixed with the fear. Junra, having replaced her shattered appendages, analyzed the shield signatures. These aren't just copies of our technology. They've improved it. The energy efficiency is 23% higher than our current models. The situation reached a breaking point when a group of young Zixtherian researchers, led by Kexley, broke ranks with their hierarchy. Fascinated by human adaptability, they established direct contact with a human scientific team, bypassing official channels on both sides. Your species' ability to function without collective consciousness isn't just an anomaly, Kexley explained to Dr. Wong during their first official meeting. It's an evolutionary advantage we never considered possible. Each human mind is like a separate laboratory, conducting independent experiments in survival and adaptation. The human scientists, for their part, were equally fascinated by Zixtherian technology. The exchange of ideas that followed was unlike anything either species had experienced before. While the Zixtherian Council struggled to maintain control over the situation, individual researchers began experiencing something they hadn't felt in millennia: independent thought. Valixis watched these developments with growing concern. Her skin had taken on a mottled pattern of competing emotions, scientific curiosity warring with institutional loyalty. The humans weren't just surviving their contact with a superior technological civilization. They were thriving on it, adapting and incorporating new concepts at a pace that defied all previous models of species development. "We may have made a grave error," she recorded in her private log, a practice she'd adopted after observing human self-reflection techniques. "In our certainty of superiority, we failed to recognize that technological advancement isn't the only measure of species evolution. The humans' greatest strength isn't their tools or their weapons. It's their endless capacity for change." As if to prove her point, reports began flooding in from Zixtherian observation posts around the globe. Humans weren't just reverse engineering their technology. They were finding applications the Zixtherians had never imagined. Quantum field technology, originally developed for cloaking and communication, was being adapted for medical treatments. Crystalline computing systems were being merged with human neural interface designs, creating hybrid systems that operated with unprecedented efficiency. But the most shocking development came from within Zixtherian society itself. Younger members of their species, inspired by human individuality, began experimenting with disconnecting from the collective consciousness for short periods. The results were both terrifying and exhilarating. Moments of true individual thought, unfiltered by the collective. The Council of High Researchers watched these developments with growing alarm. Their carefully ordered society was being transformed by contact with a species they had dismissed as primitive. The breaking point wasn't just between humans and Zixtherians. It was within Zixtherian civilization itself. The first sign that the balance of power had shifted came not from Earth, but from the Zixtherian colony world of Crystallis Prime. A group of young researchers, inspired by their observations of human independence, had completely disconnected from the collective consciousness. The resulting chaos sent shockwaves through Zixtherian society. "They're calling themselves the Free Minds," Valixis reported to the increasingly agitated council. Her skin rippled with patterns of deep concern as she displayed holographic images of the rebels. And they're not alone. Similar groups are emerging across 3 other colony worlds. High researcher MOCKED's crystalline form had lost its usual luster, dulled by the stress of recent events. And you believe this contamination comes from human influence. Contamination. The word came from Kexley, who had once again broken protocol by speaking out of turn in the council chamber. His skin pulsed with defiant orange, or evolution. "The humans have shown us that there are other paths to advancement. Our rigid adherence to collective consciousness may have become our limitation rather than our strength." Meanwhile, on Earth, Sarah Chen and Dr. Wong were making discoveries that would further upend the power dynamic. They had found that the quantum field technology used by the Zixtherians could be modified to enhance human neural networks without sacrificing individuality. "It's like having the best of both worlds," Dr. Wong explained to a joint human Zixtherian scientific committee. "We can share information and experiences instantly, like your collective consciousness, but we maintain our individual perspectives and creativity." The implications were staggering. Humans were not only adapting Zixtherian technology, they were improving it in ways the original inventors had never considered. The rigid, hierarchical thinking of the Zixtherians had prevented them from seeing possibilities that human minds, trained by evolution to find patterns in chaos, discovered almost instinctively. But the real turning point came during what became known as the Crystallos Crisis. A crucial power node in the Zixtherian collective consciousness network failed, threatening to sever millions of minds from the hive mind. The traditional Zixtherian response would have been to sacrifice the affected population to preserve the greater network. Instead, a joint human free mind team, led by Sarah Chen and Kexley, proposed a radical solution. Using modified human neural interface technology, they could maintain individual consciousness while rebuilding the network node. It was dangerous, unprecedented, and it worked. "Do you understand what this means?" Valixis asked the council afterward, her skin glowing with the bright green of revelation. "The humans' greatest strength isn't their technology or even their adaptability. It's their ability to function both as individuals and as a collective, switching between the two as needed." The success of the Crystallos intervention sparked a revolution in Zixtherian society. Young Zixtherians began practicing consciousness cycling, alternating between collective and individual states. Each time they returned to the collective, they brought new perspectives and ideas, enriching rather than diluting their shared consciousness. But not everyone embraced these changes. A faction of conservative Zixtherians, led by members of the Old Council, saw this hybridization as a threat to their species' purity. They began preparations for a desperate measure: the complete isolation of all Zixtherian worlds from human contact. What they didn't expect was resistance from their own people. The Free Minds movement had grown, spreading ideas of individual thought throughout Zixtherian space, and they had human allies. "Your council doesn't understand," Sarah explained to Valixis during a crucial meeting. "You can't put this genie back in the bottle. Your people have tasted individual thought, experienced the rush of personal discovery. They won't give that up." Valixis, who had been struggling with her own identity since first contact, finally made her decision. Her skin shifted to a previously unseen pattern, a swirling combination of Zixtherian collective signals and individual expression. "Then perhaps it's time for the council itself to evolve," she declared. "We've spent millennia believing that advancement meant moving away from our biological origins. The humans have shown us that true evolution means integrating our past with our future." The movement spread faster than anyone could have predicted. Zixtherian ships, once used to observe and study primitive species, now carried teams of human and free-mind scientists across the galaxy. Together, they began developing new technologies that combined the best aspects of both species' approaches. Dr. Wang's team made another breakthrough, a way to allow Zixtherians to form smaller, voluntary collective groups while maintaining individual consciousness. These consciousness pods provided the comfort of connection without the loss of identity that had characterized their old system. "It's ironic," Kexley remarked to Sarah as they watched a group of young Zixtherians practicing consciousness cycling. "We came to study you as primitives, but you've taught us how to be truly advanced." 5 years after first contact, the Grand Scientific Academy of Zixthar Prime looked very different. The once austere crystalline halls now pulsed with a vibrant mix of colors as Zixtherians moved freely between collective and individual states. Human scientists worked alongside their alien counterparts, their presence no longer a source of confusion, but a symbol of how far both species had come. Valixis stood at the podium of the newly formed Interspecies Council, her skin displaying a complex pattern that would have been impossible in the old days, a harmonious blend of collective connection and individual expression. Before her sat representatives from both species, a sight that would have been unthinkable half a decade ago. "When we first encountered humans," she began, her voice carrying the weight of hard-won wisdom, "we thought we were studying them. In reality, we were about to embark on the greatest experiment our species had ever known, one that would transform not just our understanding of humanity, but of ourselves." In the audience, Sarah Chen and Kexley sat side by side, their presence a testament to the bridges that had been built. Sarah, now serving as Earth's chief liaison to the Zixtherian worlds, wore a quantum interface crystal that allowed her to participate in consciousness pods when needed. Kexley, leader of the now legitimate Free Minds movement, had developed the ability to maintain his individual identity even while connected to the collective. "Our greatest mistake," Valixis continued, "was believing that advancement could only follow one path. We saw our technology, our collective consciousness, as the pinnacle of evolution. The humans showed us that true advancement lies not in abandoning our nature, but in embracing all its possibilities." The changes hadn't been easy for either species. The conservative faction of the Zixtherian Council had attempted one last desperate measure, trying to forcibly reconnect all disconnected minds to the collective. The attempt had failed spectacularly when humans and free minds demonstrated that their hybrid consciousness system was actually more stable and adaptable than the original. Dr. Wang's latest research, displayed on floating holoscreens around the chamber, showed how human and Zixtherian neural patterns had begun to influence each other. Humans who regularly participated in consciousness pods showed increased empathy and collective awareness, while Zixtherians who practiced individual thinking demonstrated improved creativity and problem-solving abilities. Perhaps most remarkably, Valixis noted, her skin shifting to the deep blue of scientific wonder, "We've discovered that our species are naturally complementary. Our rigid order and your adaptive chaos, when properly balanced, create something greater than either alone." The evidence was everywhere. Joint human Zixtherian research teams had made unprecedented breakthroughs in fields ranging from quantum physics to xenobiology. The consciousness pods, once viewed with suspicion by both species, had become popular tools for everything from scientific collaboration to artistic expression. "We came to Earth believing we would find primitive beings worthy only of study," Valixis said, her form glowing with emotion. "Instead, we found teachers who showed us that true intelligence isn't measured by technological advancement alone, but by the ability to grow, to change, and to see value in differences." In the years that followed, both species continued to evolve in unexpected ways. The Zixtherians learned to value individual expression while maintaining their collective bonds, creating a society more vibrant and resilient than ever before. Humans, while fiercely maintaining their individuality, embraced new forms of connection and collaboration that enhanced rather than diminished their personal identity. Genre, who had once shattered her crystalline appendages in shock at human capabilities, now led a research team studying how individual and collective consciousness could be balanced across different species. Her latest paper, The Adaptive Advantage: Lessons from Human Cognitive Flexibility, had become required reading at the Academy. The observation post in the Rocky Mountains, where it all began, had been transformed into a museum and research center. There, young humans and Zixtherians could learn about first contact and the remarkable journey that followed. The original quantum stasis field that had failed to contain Sarah Chen was now a popular exhibit, symbolizing how appearances of superiority could be deceiving. We no longer speak of superior or inferior species, Valixis concluded her address, her skin now displaying the complex patterns that had become the new normal for her kind. We understand now that the universe is too vast and varied for such simple distinctions. Every species, every individual has something to teach and something to learn. As she finished speaking, the assembled crowd demonstrated their approval in their own unique ways. Humans with their applause, Zixtherians with their luminescent displays, and the growing number of hybrids with both. It was a testament to how far they had come, and a promise of even greater evolution to come. Sarah caught Valix's eye from the audience and smiled. The Zixtherian researcher's skin flickered with an answering pattern of friendship and respect. They had moved far beyond their initial roles of observer and subject, superior and inferior. They had become something far more valuable, proof that the greatest advancement comes not from domination or isolation, but from the willingness to learn from those who are different from ourselves.